Daf Yomi, Tractate, Sanhedrin, page 88. A, top of the page, with the words Lefricha bivigadim shehi tehora, with regard to a case where there is a spread of leprosy in garments that culminates with the garments being completely covered with leprous marks, but the garment is pure, just as with regard to leprosy of a person. Nemra karachas vigabachas beodom, venemra karachas vigabachas bivigodim. Malahan parach bekule toyer, afkan parach bekule toyer. Karachas and gabachas are stated with regard to leprosy of a person. See Leviticus 13:42. In the sense of baldness on the back of one's forehead, or one's head and forehead, and karachat and gabachat are stated with regard to leprosy of garments. See Leviticus 13:55, in the sense of the newer and the older sections of the garment. Just as there with regard to leprosy of a person, if the leprosy spread to his entire body, he is pure. So to here, with regard to leprosy of garments, if the leprosy spread to the entire garment, it is pure. The rabbis disagree and hold that even if the leprosy spreads, the garment remains impure. Therefore, if one touches the garment throughout which the leprosy spread and enters the temple, according to the rabbis, he is liable to receive karet, while according to Yonatan ben Ptolemos, he is not liable. Divrei elu ha'erochin v'acheromim v'hekdeishois ha'erochin v'lukzer v'herebonon d'tanan ha'mayrich v'achois mi ben choidesh Rav Meir oimer nois in dama v'chomayrin lo yom klum. Matters of these are the valuations and the dedications and the consecrations. The Gemara elaborates in the case of valuations, the dispute concerning such a prohibition is with regard to the issue that is the subject of the dispute between Rabbi Meir and the rabbis. As we learned in a Braita, in the case of one who evaluates a child less than 1 month old, for whom the Torah does not specify a value. Rabbi Meir says he gives the monetary value of the child, as it is apparent that his intent was to give a donation, not a valuation. And the rabbis say he did not say anything. If the money is consecrated and one betrothed a woman with it, she is not betrothed, and one who engages in intercourse with her is liable to receive karet. Haromim biplukt Rabbi Yehuda b'mseir overbonen. Ditnan Rabbi Yehuda b'mseir oimer stam haromim levelech bayis shenema kolchem kodesh kadoshim u'lashem. In the case of dedications, the dispute concerning such a prohibition is with regard to the issue that is the subject of the dispute between Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira and the rabbis. As we learned in the Mishnah in Arachin 28b, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says dedications dedicated without specification of their purpose are designated for temple maintenance. As it is stated, every dedicated item is most sacred unto the Lord, Leviticus 27:28. Stam charomim lekoyin, shnema kesedeachem lekoyin tia chuzasoi. Im kein matabalai bekodesh kadoshim hu Hashem shechal al kodshei kodoshim el kadoshim kalim. And the rabbis say dedications dedicated without specification of their purpose are designated for the priest, as it is stated with regard to one who consecrated a field and did not redeem it. As a field is dedicated to the priest, shall be its possession. Leviticus 27:21. If so, why must the verse state every dedicated item is most sacred unto the Lord? It is to teach that dedication takes effect on offerings of the most sacred order and offerings of lesser sanctity. According to the rabbis, the property is not consecrated, and if a woman is betrothed with that property, the betrothal takes effect, and one who engages in intercourse with her is liable to receive karet. According to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, the property is consecrated and he is not liable. Hekdeisho is beplukta de Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov v'Rabbanon. Titanyo Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov oimer. Afilu tzinoiro shel hekdesh צריכה 10 בני אדם לפדויסם. In the case of consecrations, the dispute concerning such a prohibition is with regard to the issue that is a subject of dispute between Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov and the rabbis. As is taught in Braita, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says even a small fork that's consecrated property requires a court consisting of 10 people in order to redeem it. The rabbis say a court of 3 judges is sufficient. According to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, if it is redeemed before a court of 3, the property remains consecrated. According to the rabbis, the property is not consecrated, and if a woman is betrothed with that property, the betrothal takes effect, and one who engages in intercourse with her is liable to receive karet. According to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the property is consecrated, and he is not liable. Rivois Ze hashko esoito ve'arif aseglo v'taharo mitzoiro hashko esoito Biplukte der Rabbi Eliezer Yehoshua Ditznan mekane leishtoi Rabbi Eliezer omer mekane al pi shnayim umashke al pi ed echad o al pi asmo. Disputes, this is the giving of the bitter waters to a sota to drink, and the heifer whose neck is broken, and the purification of a leper in the case of giving the bitter waters to a sota to drink. The dispute concerning such a prohibition is with regard to the issue that is the subject of the dispute between Rabbi Eliezer and Yehoshua, as we learned in the Mishnah in Sota 2a, with regard to one who issues a warning to his wife not to seclude herself with a particular man. Rabbi Eliezer says he issues a warning to her based on the presence of 2 witnesses. Only then is the warning effective, and the husband gives her the bitter waters based on the testimony of one witness who saw the seclusion, or even based on his own testimony. Rabbi Yehoshua says he both issues a warning to her based on the presence of 2 witnesses and gives her bitter waters to drink based on the testimony of 2 witnesses to the seclusion. If the seclusion took place in the presence of 1 witness, according to Rabbi Eliezer, she is a sota and not entitled to receive payment on her marriage contract. According to Rabbi Yehoshua, she is not a sota, and she is entitled to receive payment of her marriage contract. The difference is whether the money of her marriage contract is hers. According to Rabbi Eliezer, if she gave that money to another who betrothed the woman with it, it is a betrothal with stolen property, and the woman is not betrothed. According to Rabbi Yehoshua, the betrothal would not take effect. Arifas egla beplukta de Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Kiva. Titnan men hayu moidedin. Rabbi Eliezer omer mitiburo. Rabbi Akiva omer mechotmo. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov omer mimakom shina sechalal mitzavaro. In the case of the heifer whose neck is broken, the dispute concerning such a prohibition is with regard to the issue that is the subject of the dispute between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Kiva, as we learned in the Mishnah in Sota 45b. From where on the body of the murder victim would they measure the distance to determine which city is closest? Rabbi Eliezer says from his navel. Rabbi Kiva says from his nose. Rabbi Eliezer Yaakov says from the place where he became a slain person, which is from his neck. According to all these Tanaim, but what if he didn't die that way? Okay, anyway, according to all these Tanaim, if the corpse is measured from a place in the body other than the place prescribed, the heifer is not consecrated for this purpose. According to Rabbi Akiva, if the measurement was taken from his navel, the heifer is not consecrated for its purpose, while according to Rabbi Eliezer, it is consecrated for the purpose. This has clear ramifications in regard to a situation in which one attempts to betroth a woman with that heifer. How much time do we have here? Okay. It's none. Ein lo bohen yad, bohen regel, ozen yamanit. Ein lo tahira lomis. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, nosin lo al makom v'yotze. Shimon Omer, nosin shel small v'yotze. In the case of the purification of the leper, the dispute concerning such a prohibition with regard to the issue that is the subject of the dispute between the Rabbi Shimon and the rabbis, As we learned in the Mishnah Negaim 14:9, if a leper does not have a thumb or a big toe or a right ear upon which the Torah says that blood and oil must be placed as part of the purification process of a leper, he has no possibility of purification forever. Rabbi Eliezer says the priest places the blood and oil for him on its place, meaning where the body parts would have been if they were intact, and he fulfills his obligation. Rabbi Shimon says the priest places the blood and oil on his left thumb, toe, and ear, and he fulfills his obligation. Both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shimon maintain that it is possible to purify such a leper, who would then not be liable to be punished with karet if he were to enter the temple. The rabbis who maintain that such a leper has no possibility of purification hold that if he enters the temple, he is liable to be punished with karet. Bisharecha, 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 bisharecha. Zel leket shichal peah. Leket etnan. Shnei shibonim leket shloshein leket. Shichal shnei modin. Amorin. Shichal shloshein shichal. In your gates, this is gleanings. Forgotten sheaves and produce in the corner of the field, which is peah. In the case of gleanings, the dispute concerning such a prohibition is, as we learned in the Mishnah, peah 6:5. Two stalks that were not cut with the sheaves and are then found in a field by a poor person are gleanings and belong to the poor person. 3 stalks are not gleanings, and the owner of the field can take them if he chooses. In the case of forgotten sheaves, the same Mishnah teaches that if he forgot 2 sheaves, they are forgotten sheaves and belong to the poor, whereas 3 or more bundles are not forgotten sheaves and belong to the owner of the field. With regard to all of them, Bishamai say, if there are 3, it belongs to the poor person, and if there are 4, it belongs to the owner. According to Beit Hillel, if a poor person took 3 stalks or sheaves, they do not belong to him. And if he betrothed a woman with them, his betrothal does not take effect. According to Beit Shammai, she is betrothed. Peah, beplukta Rabbi Yishmael v'Rabbanan. It's mitzvahs peah להפריש מן הקמה, לא הפריש מן הקמה, יפריש מן המורין, לא הפריש מן המורין, יפריש מן הקרי עד שלא מריחו נאסר ונושא לו. In the case of peah, the dispute concerning such a prohibition is with regard to the issue that is the subject of the dispute between the Rabbi Ishmael and the rabbis. As we learned in the Braita, the mitzvah of peah is to designate it from the standing grain still growing from the ground. If he did not designate it from the standing grain, but reaped the entire field, he designates a portion from the sheaves as peah. If he did not designate it from the sheaves, he designates it from the pile, where one places the kernels after threshing before he smooths the pile, at which point the produce is considered grain, from which one is obligated to take trumot and tithes. If he already smoothed the pile before designating the peah, he tithes the grain in the pile and then gives the peah to the poor. If he ground the kernels into flour, he no longer designates peah. In the name of Rabbi Ishmael, they said, one who designates peah even from the dough. If a poor person takes peah from the dough and betroths a woman with the dough, according to the rabbis, the betrothal does not take effect, while according to Rabbi Ishmael, she is betrothed. Shlosha batei dinim nechule Amar Rav Kahana hu oimer mipi hashmua v'hein omri mipi hashmua eno ne'erag. The Mishnah teaches there were 3 courts in Jerusalem. The Mishnah then details the procedure followed when a rebellious elder appeared before these courts. Rav Kahana says, if the rebellious elder says his ruling on the basis of the tradition that he received from his teacher, and the members of the court say that they're ruling on the basis of the tradition they received from their teachers, the rebellious elder is not executed because there is legitimate basis for his ruling. Hu omer kach hu be'enai, v'hen omrin kach hu be'enenu, eno neherag. V'kol shechen hu omer mipi hashmua, v'hen omrim kach hu be'enenu, eno neherag, ad shomar kach hu be'inai. Vehem omrim mipi hashmua. Teda shehare lo hargu et Akavi ben Mahalel. If the rebellious elder says, this is the correct understanding in my eyes, and does not claim that his ruling is based on tradition, and the members of the court say, this is the correct understanding in our eyes, he is not executed. And all the more so if he says his ruling is on the basis of tradition, and the members of the court say, this is the correct understanding in our eyes, he is not executed. He is not executed unless he flouts tradition on the basis of his understanding and says, this is correct understanding in my eyes, and the members of the court say they're ruling on the basis of tradition. No, that this is so, as Akavi ben Mahalal was not executed, despite the fact that he ruled contrary to the consensus ruling of his contemporaries because he based his ruling on a tradition that he received. Rabbi Elazar Omer afilu hu Omer mipi hashmua ve'heinu kach hu beinenu neherag kedei shelo yirbu machlokot בישראל. ואם תאמר מפני מה לא הרגו את הקווי בן הלל, בפני שלא הורה הלכה למעשה. Rabbi Elazar says, even if the rebellious elder says his ruling is on the basis of the tradition, and the members of the court say this is correct understanding in our eyes, he is executed, so that discord will not proliferate among Israel, and to ensure that there will be a standard halachic ruling. If you say, for what reason was the Kavi ben Halal not executed, it is due to the fact that he did not issue his ruling as practical halacha. He merely claimed that his understanding was correct in theory, which is always permitted. Tanan, kach darashi v'kach darshu chavirai, kach lemadadi v'kach limdu chavirai, ma'ilav, dehu amar mipi hashmua, ve'hen amrin, kach hu be'inenu. Lo, hu omer kach hu be'inai, ve'hem omrim mipi hashmua. We learned in the Mishnah, the rebellious elder says, this is what I interpreted, and that is what my colleagues interpreted. This is what I taught, and that is what my colleagues taught. The Gemara asks, what is it, not including a case where he says his ruling on the basis of the tradition, and the members of the court say, this is the correct understanding in our eyes? The Gemara rejects this. No. The reference is to a case where he says, this is the correct understanding in my eyes, and the members of the court say they're ruling on the basis of the tradition. Tashema, Rabbi Yehoshua, Shlosh Dvarim Sachli, Zeira Me'anchi Yerushalayim, Baal Shemachal Al Kinuyo Machol. Come and hear a proof from that which Rabbi Yehoshua says. There are three matters that Zeira, one of the residents of Jerusalem, said to me. The first is that in the case of a husband who, after warning his wife not to enter into seclusion with a certain man, retracted his warning is restricted, and if she enters into seclusion with that man, she is not rendered forbidden to her husband.